Welcome to the Heartful Healing Hub podcast. I am Deanne, your host, frequency intuitive and energetic healing guide, here to hold space for transformation through sound, energy, and sacred storytelling. You're listening to Healed and Whole Stories of Remembering, a special series where I sit with women who've walked through deep health challenges and emerged transformed. These are conversations that are sacred, heart to heart, soul to soul, filled with truth, resilience, and the power of coming home to yourself. May these conversations inspire your own inner healer to awaken. Let's begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And today I have a special guest with me, and I would like to introduce you to her. Let me just have a little peek here and see what her little bio is so that I'm not messing up. So Kate is a certified life and ADHD coach specializing in helping people navigating life's toughest chapters while resilience and purpose. So she has faced a debilitating medical journey herself, spanning years of misdiagnosis, multiple surgeries, and her own late ADHD diagnosis. And she brings both professional expertise and deep lived experience to every client that she works with. Welcome,
Hi,
Kate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Oh, yes, I'm so pleased you're here. So if you want to tell us about if I've missed anything, or if you want to tell us more who you are and where you're from and your journey and your story, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so I think you got me summarised quite well to start with. My name's Kate. I'm based in the UK, just outside of London, and I work as an ADHD and life coach. And that was a business that I launched coming up a year, actually, in the next week or so. So exciting journey, but there was lots that happened prior to that, which led me to that point, which I'd love to obviously share with you today and your listeners. Cool. So what ultimately happened for me, I was running my own successful business, working as a hair and beauty therapist. I had my own business. I worked from home. I had 120 clients I was regularly looking after, and everything was going well until ultimately it wasn't. And what that sort of looked like for me is I'd started getting pains in my wrists, which for hairdressers and anyone in that industry, it's quite a common issue, and it tends to be carpal tunnel. The pain for me had started to move up my arms. So unlike carpal tunnel, where it generally doesn't and it stays in one area, I'd started getting to the point that by the time I reached out to medical professionals, that pain had radiated sort of up into my armpits. I was getting pain in my neck. And I was going through at this point the National Health Service in the UK, and I'd seen a specialist, and he's like, I just don't know what's wrong with you. He had done multiple tests, everything was coming back clear, and he was like, you've got all the symptoms of carpal tunnel, but then the elbow pain comes in and the neck pain comes in, and he's like, it doesn't really make sense. And by this point, like, my general practitioner was prescribing pain medication because I was self-employed in pain and still needing to work. And she was like, I just want to sign you off. And I was like, you can't sign me off. I'm self-employed. If you take away my business, I can't work. And she was like, I really can't get to the point that I can pain manage you. And it was only after a combination of sort of private paid for medical testing and actually the help of a Facebook group, which I'll come back to shortly in the story, I realised there was probably something else going on. And the consultant I was under was like, I think we need to get someone else to look at you because I don't know what's going on. And I was this exciting medical mystery, which didn't feel very exciting for me at the time. So he got another consultant to look at all my files, look at all these test results, which were coming back clear. And somebody said, I think she could have thoracic outlet syndrome. Now, in the UK, that's not something that's very widely known. And by this point, I'd started to do some research of my own online. And I'd found a Facebook group, which was for people with thoracic outlet syndrome. And I just took a moment to approach some people on the group and went, I think this is what I might have. And I got a very big, warm welcome to the group of like, yeah, you probably meet the criteria based on all of us having been through comparable journeys. And it sort of allowed me to really move into a space of understanding what this actually was and get quicker support, because I had this community around me that I didn't even know existed, didn't know the medical condition even existed. And ultimately, it allowed me to get a much quicker diagnosis. What that then looked like is I went back to the consultant and said, yeah, actually, looking at my symptoms, I also think this is potentially what I've got. And they referred me to a consultant in London, and they wanted me to go up for weekly appointments for physiotherapy. Now, I was self-employed. That was a day out my business. And the problem with thoracic outlet syndrome is it's a bit of a dynamic disability, in the sense of what it actually is where your collarbone sits and your first rib on your neck. You've got this sort of space between the two. And between that space is your nerves, your veins, and your arteries for your arms. Now, I was getting symptoms in both sides of my body at this point, and it was a case of going, okay, so something's obviously not working very well in that space. Through the Facebook community, I realised that in the UK, there was potentially one person I could go and see who ran a centre of excellence for thoracic outlet syndrome. And I had already reached a point with my consultant in London. He was like, I think we need to operate, which they don't tend to like to do. It's quite a delicate part of the body. Lots of obviously mechanical parts moving through that space as well. So I reached out to this specialist based sort of in the west of England and said, hey, I'd like to come and have a consultation with you. And he was like, yeah, minimum 3 hours. He's quite expensive an hour. So I was like, there will be no time for tea, biscuits, niceties. I need to maximise the full time that I was with him. And as you can probably tell, I'm a bit of a talker as well. So it was a bit of a challenging visit. But he said to me, ultimately, you've got both sides, so bilaterally, and all three strains. So in my space between my collarbones and my first rib, my veins, my nerves, and my arteries were being compressed when I lifted my arms up. So he said to me, look, the consultant you're under in London's great, but I'd really like you to go and see a consultant at John Radcliffe Hospital. It's one of the major trauma hospitals in the UK. We call him the Fixer. I was like, okay, great, I'm going to the Fixer. I was like, why? And he said he fixes everyone when they've had surgeries elsewhere and they've not been successful. So off I went to see the Fixer. Absolutely lovely consultant who still looks after me 8 years later. And he went, I think you've got issues in your elbows. And I just went back to the specialist in Bristol who I'd seen, and I said, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to pay and I'm going to fly to America and have it done. Because at this point, I was really struggling. Uncontrollable pain issues, trying to run a business. I'd got 3 young children. Like, my livelihood was dependent at this point on me earning money and being successful in my job. And I did a lot of weddings and photo shoots, and that was really challenging with quite a debilitating physical illness. So I said, yeah, I'm going to go to America. Give me the name of some American consultants. I'm going to reach out. And he said, I'm going to be really honest with you, Kate. He said, you're not going to get much change from £100,000 if you do this surgery. And I was like, not a problem. I'll remortgage my house. I'm going to go to America for 6 weeks and have both sides done. And he emailed the consultant who'd gone skiing by this point and said she's going to fly to the States and she's going to have it done in America. And he went, okay, fine, I'll operate. Which side do you want me to do? And ultimately, that was the start of me going on a bit of a journey of self-discovery and acceptance. And he did operate, and he did say, actually, can I do your elbow as well? And I was like, yeah, fine. Like, you're taking me into theatre, you can open up my elbow as well, like, not an issue. And he's done both elbows, and what they do is they go in the collarbone and they remove part of your first rib. So it allows the nerves, veins and arteries to drop down to give them more space, because mine were being compressed. When he took me into theatre, anything under 97% oxygen rate to your arms is dangerous. He took me into theatre, and when I came round, he's like, just to let you know, Kate, when I lifted your arm up, I could cut the blood supply off to your arms. So I was very much in the dangerous zone with the condition that I'd got. Bit of a worse story up to that point. So it was a point then that I had to obviously heal and recover from the surgery. It is a surgery that quite often gets repeated. So they tend to say sort of about the 5-year mark, do expect that you might be going back in to have more of your first rib removed. And it comes with obviously crossovers with the issues I had at my elbow where my nerves were being compressed. And I'm still under consultant-led care. But essentially what it made me realise is, through my own determination and desire to resolve the issue, the diagnosis process I went through, I sped up quite considerably. So most people that have thoracic outlet syndrome end up going through 7 years of care in alternative provisions before they get a diagnosis. And it tends to come quite heavily from psychiatrist referral for that particular issue. And the reason for this is there's no test that shows thoracic outlet syndrome. So it can sometimes not show on nerve studies. It doesn't show on necessarily MRIs, X-rays. It's not an easy thing to diagnose. So they discount everything else first. And I was really fortunate that through obviously paid support and the National Health Service in the UK, that I sped that process up quite considerably. Otherwise, I'd have had an additional sort of 5 years of going through different specialists and consultants before actually getting a resolution to understanding what was wrong and why I was having the issues I was.
That's incredible. That's like, what a journey. So the span of from the time that you started realizing that you were in pain to where you're at now, how long was that?
Yeah, so I had about 2 years from initial pain and reaching out for my general practitioner to help. It was 2 years then to surgery. I last had my last operation during COVID. So about 2020, I had elbow surgery done around that time. So yeah, still under consultant care 6 years later, but that's more because of the fact it's a variable. What it did mean for me is essentially I really leveraged what was a community of people that I had never met. I was speaking to other people with thoracic outlet syndrome on the phone. We would text. Like, I stayed part of that community even after my surgeries, because I was like, I know that other people will go through similar issues and need the me that I got access to when I first joined those groups. But it did make me realise something else. Like, I went into those surgeries and the consultant said to me, right, I need to obviously read you the declaration of what the risks are, because it's quite a major area when you're going in and removing bone around nerves, veins and arteries. You're not in an area that's particularly risk averse, shall we say. It's quite risk heavy. And also I elected to have the left side done first. Now, there was a conscious reason for that, and that's because there's a part of your heart that goes near that area. So I was like, actually, I know the left is slightly more complicated, to the point that somebody had said, eat a really high fat diet before you go in, because it pushes all the things up that are heart related. It makes them more visible. So I was there eating like butter soaked cod the night before my surgery, because I was like, actually, anything I can do to make this less sort of risky for the surgeon is great. So he sat me down in the pre-operation room. I was like, I'm going to read you the list. And I said, just don't read me the list. I said, I don't want to know. And he's like, but do you not want me to tell you? Like, I could paralyze you. you've got a risk that you could bleed out in theatre. And I was like, I don't care, because I can't go on like this. And I think years later, I sort of said to my husband, I was like, if we hadn't had children, I wouldn't be here, because I couldn't have coped with what I went through. And the second surgery, the consultant sat me down, can I read you the risks? I'm like, don't. We've done it once. I know what I'm up against. And I was like, the benefit for me, what this surgery could bring, far outweighs the risks that you're going to read to me. So I signed that declaration form, not knowing or not having read the risks. And I don't recommend that at all. But I got to that point, I was really desperate, and I needed somebody to just help the issues I was having. So yeah, quite major surgery. Now, I know that for some people that would shape them in a way that they're not able to move past. For me, it was a massive catalyst for how I live my life now and how I've lived my life since that operation period, and being so heavily in the medical space. And it's just something that I don't take things for granted at all. I found actually it awakened something in me, which then led me to launch another business. So my obviously life coaching business. And I don't stay in environments that don't support me, help develop me as a human being, because tomorrow isn't promised. And I know that's a very cliche thing to say, but I look back at what I went through, and ultimately that was huge. And now I'm like, do you know what? If this environment isn't serving me, or I'm learning something of value, I'm out. Like, I'm done. So it's definitely awakened a part of me that's made me more confident as a person, and ultimately driven me to live a life of fulfillment, really.
No, that's wonderful. And it is unfortunate in one sense that we have to go through, like I went through something really, major too, to kind of wake me up and say, okay, like, as you said, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So, and then being in a supportive environment and being part of a community is so essential. I mean, especially, like I look back at when the pandemic started and up until now, it is even more needed now than ever before. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely amazing. So now that you've had, are you still facing more surgery in the future, or what are the tools, or what do you do to keep yourself in healthy, if you want?
Yeah, so I post my surgeries, I then found out that I'd got ADHD, and that happened probably sort of 3 to 4 years ago. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, that was a hyper focus. I hyper focused on getting myself well and diagnosed and knowing what was wrong, essentially. And I'll never forget when I called the medical receptionist for the consultant in Oxford, and I said, I need an appointment with him. I need to have an operation. Like, I'd been told that was what's going to happen. She's like, yeah, 7-month wait. I was like, I'm not waiting 7 months. She was like, no, it's a 7-month wait. I'm like, I need an operation. She's like, oh, well, it's 7 months. I said, okay, I'm going to ring every day, and you can tell me if you've got cancellation. And very conveniently, I pestered that poor lady to death. Every day I rang her, and I think it got to about day 6, and she went, okay, fine, I'll just book you an appointment. And I saw the consultant very, very quickly, which I now know is probably my hyper focus. But essentially what the tools are for me that have come out of that is just a sheer level of sort of resilience that I know I have had and can have. And ultimately, like, a lot of self-discovery. And I work with clients where I do that in what we do day to day, but I know who I am very authentically through understanding like my core values. And I'm not downplaying the fact I was incredibly ill. And I know that period is incredibly difficult. But I think for me, I came out of that going, actually, I've got this newfound wisdom and probably a slight feeling of a little bit invincibility of like, okay, I came through that and that was really tough and I'm still here. And I use humor a lot, and I make some jokes that I probably shouldn't make, especially with medical professionals who seem to be bemused sometimes by my quips. But I think for me, I actually realised, like, I've got ADHD, again, also aided by the support of a community that was aided by LinkedIn. But I think I've come out of it going, it's important to know who you are. And when you face challenges, if you didn't know who you are before, when you come out of those, it's really beneficial if you know who you are after. And that can change in the journey that you go through, because it shapes you. And like rings on an oak tree, it shapes who you are as a human. And that's probably catapulted me forward in terms of not waiting for things to happen, being my authentic self. And I think especially with work, for example, work doesn't feel hard if it aligns with your core values. And it's fair to say quite a lot of people don't do that work on themselves or spend that time really sort of understanding who they are and what they bring, because we all bring something different and unique and beautiful. And a lot of people don't know what it is that they bring or can't see that.
That's very true. Yeah. So looking at your career as a life coach and ADHD coach, how do you feel that what you've gone through has helped you become like a better coach for those people?
Yeah, so I think for me, there's two sort of lenses to it. From the ADHD perspective, I'm now a certified ADHD coach, and I get it when you maybe work with somebody that doesn't have that level of understanding and you're going, why can't I achieve like everybody else? And that was one of the biggest challenges I faced personally in my professional career, of going, why is everybody else not trying to work out how long they can go to the bathroom for in an hour because I'm sat in an office? And I realised if you go more than probably twice in an hour, you start to look like you've got a bladder problem. And I used that going to the bathroom to just escape from sitting in an office at a desk. Now, as an individual, I now know I don't work well full-time in an office. It's not an environment that suits me, but I empower myself and therefore can empower others to go, do you know what? If that doesn't work for you, why are you making yourself do that? And a lot of the time, clients that I work with go, you don't give me the answers, but you know how to get me to the answer that I already know. And it's the getting to the answer that someone already knows is the process. And that sounds...
It's empowering.
Yeah. And I can say to somebody, oh, you just need to do this. But the voice that's most powerful in those situations isn't mine, it's their own. And I always say to people, like, if you think that something might happen in your life that's quite stressful or going to come out, write a note to your future self, because essentially what I'm going to tell you is not going to have the same weight and value. On the flip side, obviously, having been incredibly ill, I think it allows me that sort of empathy and understanding when things don't go right. And I don't think there's many of us in the world that would say, actually, the things that have happened to us are things that we have mapped out, or that we go, yeah, that's what I planned. Like, I know obviously you've had personal challenges as well. I don't imagine that was ever on your like life plan of, oh, this is what's going to happen to me and I'll deal with it and it'll be rubbish. Like, we plan for the good, right? Not for the bad.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. So, do you have a message or words of wisdom for someone that might go through similar things? Or like, I know you're part of some groups, but what would you say to them if someone kind of relates to what you said today?
Yeah, so I'd say if you are going through hard times, like, I know it's hard to say just keep going, but ultimately you do just have to really try and just keep going. Like, if you're moving forward, you're moving, and that's massive. And the other thing I think I'd say is, I know it's really hard to ask other people for help. And someone said something to me that massively shifted my thoughts and ideas around asking others for help. And that's just the thought that when you help others, how do you feel? And I think we can all say, like, when we feel like we've helped somebody else, we feel good. And someone said to me, if you don't let other people have the opportunity to help you, you're robbing them of the feeling of feeling good. And that did it for me. I was like, oh, actually, it's not about me. If I don't give other people the opportunity to help, they don't get that nice feeling either. And that shifted my mindset when I was unwell. And it shifted my mindset about how I think about things. So I would just say, if you are going through a tough time, do reach out. I know it's difficult to others. I found huge benefit in speaking to other people that had either been through what I'd gone through and could relate, or were in a similar situation to myself. And yeah, just think, like, if you've got friends and family around you that you can leverage, just think, I'm providing opportunities ultimately for them to feel good by helping. And it's not about the help that you get, it's about you opening up opportunities for other people to feel good.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So people, if they want to reach you, I know that I will put all your links in the show notes, but is there, like, I know you have a website. Where else can they reach you at?
Yeah, so I have a website, which is 8%coaching.com. I do worldwide coaching, so time zone is not a challenge. I'm also on Instagram at 8% coaching, or you can find me on LinkedIn under Kate Edwards.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely talking with you. So thank you.
No, likewise. Thanks so much.
Thank you for spending time with us inside the Heartful Healing Hub. If this story moved you, please consider sharing this episode or leaving a comment. Your words help others find this sacred space. If you or someone you love has a healing journey to share, we'd love to hear from you. And finally, if you would enjoy a gentle way to unwind after listening, visit the show notes to download your free tea ritual guide, Sip and Soften, a soul-soothing gift to nourish your inner healer. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust what has always been within you. And remember, you are whole, you are healing, you are home.